on there, comrades. We'll be starting shortly. Wait. Is this not connected to the... There it goes. Okay. Yeah, for some reason, the chat didn't load up right at my end. There we go. Okay. And... not there. Okay, this place is kinda... no. Okay. And then, can I go over here? Let's see. Okay, so I went there. Oh, hey, Nivell. Thought you'd still be over. Thought you'd still be over watching legs, or do you just have them both open? Like a real gamer. Let's see here. Fair enough. Oh, I closed this by mistake. Good call then, good call. Good to see you here regardless. Let's see. I'm just putting the links around now. Almost done. Here we go. And this was automatic, meaning let's go here. Okay. I think that just about covers it. Close out of this. And I'll just get this here. And I'll wait a few minutes to see if anyone else trickles in. Having a bit of a pre-drink, as it were. Thirsty like that. At least this time I don't have a starting soon screen ready for myself just yet, but hang on. Okay, no, that's something else. Okay. I'll just do this. I'll do this. There. Ah, yes, I remember now. We did that whole thing with where I was playing as what's his name, Miko Toba for a bit. Yes. Okay. And we found out that an attempt has been made on Jigoku's life. But by whom? Oh, that's right. I'll go back and read that line. Let's see. There we go. Okay. I did think of one last place to advertise, see if we can get some more faces in here. All right. Now let's get on with this here now. Those of you who are here, don't want to keep you waiting any longer. Anyway, the unexpected yeah. The unexpected halt of proceedings sent a clamor around the courtroom. But outside the Bailey, where Londoners knew nothing of the secret trial within, it was a typical still night. Then, at a little past 8 o'clock that evening, Mr. Sholmes and his partner returned to Baker Street. 3rd November, 8:07 p.m. Sholmes' suite. By the way, let me know if the audio balancing is to your liking, because I know that's been an issue ever since I figured out what was wrong with my mic before, or rather my mic settings in OBS here. So do speak up if there's an issue. We have returned, my dear fellows. Welcome back to Britain, and thank you for your timely help. Think nothing of it. I believe you've had an even more wearing day than Mikotoba and I know. You could say that. We were on the brink of defeat in court earlier. So this prosecutor, Asogi, had you on the ropes, did he? And he's your best friend, you say? Well, he's not really the man I knew in Japan anymore. Kazuma's changed. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo. I mean, it's incredible to think that he'd even entertained the idea of acting as the Reaper's assassin. Well, nevertheless, you must introduce me. After all, I've only ever met the young man as a corpse. When all this started, almost a year ago now, Mr. Sholmes still hasn't told us the truth about what really happened back then. About the motivation for what he himself described as a great detective's lie. Now then, I must say, it's really quite a journey all the way to France. Well, it is another country, Mr. Sholmes. So what news of Judge Jigoku? We took him to Scotland Yard. The investigating detectives there have a lot of questions for the man. Poor Professor Mikotoba. This must be quite a shock for him. Ah yes, I picked this up at the telegraph office on my way home. What is it? Surely you haven't forgotten already. Surely you haven't forgotten already. I put upon you for the matter only yesterday. You put upon me, Sholmes. You put upon me, Sholmes. I had to fill out your telegram to Japan and foot the bill as well. Oh, you've had a reply already? What was so urgent, though, Mr. Sholmes? Such matters can wait until later. I'm far too hungry for an involved conversation at present.
Well, that's good news, because supper is ready, everyone!
Ah, and what a feast it is! If I were none the wiser, I'd think the trial were won already. Roast beef, kippers, stew, steak, and kidney pie, Yorkshire pudding. Roast beef, kippers, stew, steak, and kidney pie, Yorkshire pudding. Sorry, was just unplugging the unruly controller.
Tomorrow could be a very long day, so eat up!
In that case, I think I'll seat myself just here. This place appears to be the only one set with a helping of pheasant as well.
Oh, sorry, Hurley, not there.
Why ever not? Are we in set places this evening?
Yes, and that place is for Susie's daddy.
For me?
That's right, I made it especially for you, Professor Mickey.
I see. Well, that's terribly kind of you.
It's a shame, really.
What do you mean?
Well, for a brief moment I believed it. That Susie and I were half-sisters, I mean.
Oh! Iris, do you mean...
Yes, I know now. I overheard yesterday. I secretly listened into the conversation you had after I tricked you all into thinking I'd left.
What?! The misunderstanding arose because of that autopsy report from 10 years ago. But actually, it turned out that neither Dr. Wilson nor Professor Mikotoba are Iris's father. Wait, what?! Yes, about that, Iris. You know,
I know. You can't tell me at the moment.
Oh, Iris.
The pheasant is by way of an apology. I'm sorry for eavesdropping.
Oh, no, that's quite alright. Then why don't I get any apologetic pheasant? So just who is Iris's father? I suppose that's not something we'll be finding out today. So then, let us dine while our largely pheasantless plates are still piping hot. A fine idea, Sholmes. It all looks absolutely delicious.
Eat as much as you like. There are always seconds.
This could be our last chance to ask questions before tomorrow's trial. About that telegram from Japan, and about Kazuma. I can't let this opportunity slip away. Where is Yujin Mikotoba? Not here. I guess I just have to talk to Sholmes. Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing? Surely it's abundantly clear that I wasn't brooding over Mikotoba's refusal to share his pheasant with me. Nevertheless, I felt the need to withdraw from the social circle for a while and look on with hungry eyes.
Sorry, Hurley, but I cooked that pheasant especially for Susie's daddy.
Even though I've played the role of father to you for far longer. Mr. Sholmes, could I discuss some things with you? Certainly, my dear fellow. I find myself quite in the mood for a spell of conversation. Let me check something. I want to check people. Sholmes. Okay, he's 34. 10, then that would mean... Oh no. Don't tell me. Okay. Oh, also, I can examine these things now. That's right. Okay, evacuation drill notice, 31st October. Following departure from the port of Dunkirk, all crew members are required to assemble on the main deck at 10 p.m. in order to review evacuation procedures. The drill will take 20 minutes. Crew to resume duties as soon as the drill is over. Okay, so that's fine. Nope. This here. I want to examine it. You see these little things all over the place, don't you? It's the part on the top of a pocket watch that you twist to set the time, isn't it?
It's called the crown, I believe. A watch would be quite useless without one.
The crown? Like what sits on top of a monarch's head? That's a very grand name for such a tiny part. But actually...
Yes, Mr. Naruhodo?
If this is a crown, I have a feeling I might have seen a monarch around here somewhere with a very bare head.
If by monarch you mean pocket watch, then I'm quite sure you have.
Can I combine those two things? Oh yeah. Here we go. Does this do something different now? What do you think, Mrs. Sato?
I feel sure I know exactly what will fit here.
Really? I was just thinking precisely the same thing.
We're about to see that the little round component is actually part of Inspector Gregson's broken pocket watch.
Really? I was just thinking precisely that too. Here we go.
A perfect fit!
I knew it! Alright, perhaps you knew it.
I'll make a note of this new information at once.
It's now clear that it's the missing crown of Inspector Gregson's pocket watch. Okay, so this was in Jigoku's cabin. Interesting. Okay, so that's been... And this is new? What? So this is where the little policeman figurine's key goes in to wind the watch. Winding it up every single day for 10 years without fail.
Yes, it was obviously a thing of great importance to the inspector.
Or a reminder of the past, lest he forget. Alright. Well, we've updated this piece of evidence. That's what I wanted to do. Okay. Now where were we, Sholmes? No doubt you're hungry to learn more of my deep love of game. I can probably contain my curiosity on that one. You needn't look at me in that fashion. In what fashion? It seems that before we discuss the pheasant, we have some rather unpheasant matters to discuss. So what was in the telegram you received back from Japan, then? Ah, this? I thank my lucky stars it arrived in time. Record found as indicated. Duplicate follows. K. Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. Okay, so those are the 4 names on the thing from before. Yes. Kazuma Asogi, Asashin, Tobias Gregson, and John Wilson. Okay. What about them? What? Those 4 names! We come across that exact same list before! They came up in that unforgettable case last spring. What appeared to be a simple case of aggravated murder turned out to be masking monumental intrigue. Wait a minute. A. Shin, T. Gregson... Wait. A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson, and K. Asogi. Are they all the Reaper? Is that what we're looking at now? A plot that involved the sale of British governmental secrets to foreign states. In exposing the means by which those secrets were being leaked, we deciphered a fragment of a message. K. Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. But we didn't find the names out until the case was over, and we never did get to the bottom of what they meant. All we knew was that the information had been sent by somebody in the British government to somebody in Japan. Was it sent to Jigoku? Oh no. So why are the names coming up again now?
Yes, where did the sender of your telegram discover them, Mr. Sholmes?
I have here the message I had wired yesterday. Allow me to read it to you. Enter Judge Jigoku's office undetected and investigate telegram records. So it was to Jigoku. Expect to find communication from Britain dated 1 year ago. List of full names. Need by tomorrow. Naruhodo. I send it to a detective I know who specializes in clandestine missions of this nature. You asked Inspector Hosonaga to undertake such an onerous task for you? Asked Inspector Hosonaga to undertake such an onerous task for you? And in my name? I wonder what guise he opted for this time. My dear fellows, it was a matter of great urgency, you understand. Anyway, the list of names was found in Seishiro's office, as Sholmes predicted. So you mean that mysterious collection of names that was sent from Britain to Japan was... It was sent to Judge Jigoku. He was the intended recipient. Oh no. Was it sent to him from Strongheart? And now both of the named judges are bad. Is that what we're looking at here now? Here we go. I don't believe it. But that doesn't answer the question of what the list of names actually signifies. It's the Reaper. Collectively. I did formulate a hypothesis about that. But without a shred of evidence, I couldn't possibly have shared it. Mr. Sholmes looks deadly serious for once. A telegram from Inspector Hosonaga in Japan with details of the telegram he managed to locate by stealing it to Judge Jigoku's office. Okay. Just to make sure we read the same thing. Record found as indicated. Duplicate follows. Yes. T. Gregson, J. Wilson. Okay. Kazuma's death. That tragedy we had to go through on the SS... That tragedy we had to go through on the SS Borea. It was all for nothing! Kazuma wasn't dead at all! We were completely taken in by the lie you told us. Your great detective's lie. I took no pleasure in deceiving you. However, at the time, all that concerned me was preventing the young man's study tour from taking place, whatever the cost. What? I capitalized on the events that transpired to see that he was sent back to Japan. His remains, you mean? Precisely, Miss Susato. And then, I made sure that somebody else was sent to Britain in his stead. Oh my! You mean... The arrangement between our two countries was already in place. One university student lawyer and one judicial assistant to be accommodated on a study tour. In other words, by arranging for someone else to fill the place originally intended for Mr. Asogi. I would successfully prevent the man from arriving on our shores for several years at least. Wait, do you mean to say that it was all in aid of stopping Kazuma coming to Britain? That's why you... Think back, Mr. Naruhodo. Was there not somebody who quite casually urged you to continue on the voyage to England?
The terms of this study tour were negotiated by the Department of Justice in both Great Britain and Japan. In the light of Mr. Asogi's unfortunate death, I'm afraid the study tour can no longer go ahead.
My dear fellows, the majority of problems have an extremely simple solution, you know. All you require is one lawyer, and the study tour can continue, surely. But there is no one else with the necessary qualifications, Mr. Sholmes. We know of no other lawyer. The voyage to London still promises a good month of time. Ample opportunity, I would say, to find yourselves another suitable lawyer. So, you manipulated me?! I've often remarked on the extraordinary lengths to which friendship will drive a man. I was quite sure that you would rise to the challenge for your late friend. I don't believe it! But if it was all contrived... I mean, what happened was treated by the authorities as murder. A woman was mistakenly arrested as the perpetrator. What do you suppose became of her? Naturally, I didn't allow the misapprehension to have any serious repercussions. I subsequently explained everything and assisted the unfortunate soul in finding the foreign refuge she sought. I seem to remember Miss Susato and I had some rather strong words for her. Well, she was certainly not devoid of all guilt. She deserved every word, I'm sure. I wonder if she made it to America then. I'm afraid I simply cannot comprehend it. Why would you go to such lengths, Mr. Sholmes? Why were you so determined to stop Kazuha-sama from reaching Britain? The truth is, 12 months ago, there was already a very tangible omen of the impending tragedy, you see. Oh! An omen that at this very moment in time is close at hand. An omen of all these tragic events that already existed a year ago is close at hand? We need to find out exactly what Mr. Sholmes knows. Yes, we do. An omen of all these tragic events that already existed a year ago. Okay. Is it this? Mr. Sholmes, would you mind looking at this? It's not that. This is hardly the time, Mr. Naruhodo, as I'm sure you will appreciate. Oh, no, of course not. My attention is entirely drawn to one single matter now. The pheasant. Anyone would think you hadn't eaten in weeks. An omen that existed a year ago. It is now close at hand. It's not the food. It's not that thing. It's not that. It's not that. I thought there were stairs there. Okay, the windows are all... the blinds are all closed. Okay. No, 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 no. This is Mr. Sholmes' famous violin. The one he found being sold for a song at a pawnbrokery. What's it called again? A Shodi something?
Oh yes, this wonderful instrument features in the adventures of Herlock Sholmes. It's a world-famous Stradivarius.
Strata what?
Stradivarius, Mr. Naruhodo.
Stradivor... Are you even trying now? We'll come back to this another time, I think. Okay. Clearly, I need to present something to Sholmes, but what? Can we speak to him about... not the evacuation notice. I thought the sword. It's not this. Wait. Okay, no. He's not interested in this. Not the telegram, not the evacuation drill. It's not this. It's not the notice board. Not the candelabrum, not the armband, not the Red-Headed League, not Daily Vigil. Not this thing. Okay, already existed a year ago. Not the Hirsch reprimand, not the framed photograph, not the red wig. An armband I inherited from Kazuma. Okay, it's not the... Can I examine it for anything new? I'm right in thinking that these scales are a symbol of the defense in law, aren't they?
They're supposed to symbolize treating everything equally and fairly. That's why they're always in the middle, balanced, equal measures on both sides.
Recently, though, whenever I see a set of scales, I can only think of the enormous scales of justice.
That's entirely understandable. They are such a powerful symbol in the courtroom, aren't they?
And the thing about the scales of justice is, they're always leaning one way or the other. They're only ever in balance right at the start.
It must be something peculiar to the British. I'm afraid I can't shed any light on it, Mr. Naruhodo.
It's very fine embroidery here that shows the name of the armband's owner. In this case, Kazuma Asogi. So I'm always carrying my best friend's hopes and dreams with me on my right arm just here, all the time. To be honest, it's something that weighs very heavily on me.
Oh, I didn't realize it was such a burden, Mr. Naruhodo.
Yes, I think it's why my right shoulder aches so much.
Are you sure that's not to do with you reading in bed or the like?
Okay. Is it this? It's not that. It's not this thing. I don't think it's this. Nope. Okay, what else? What else can we try? This didn't exist a year ago. Crime scene floor plan, no. Firecracker, no. Photograph of victim, no. The pocket watch, I think I tried the pocket watch. Inspector's ID? No. I mean, that existed a year ago. This I don't think did. Well, it's not that, regardless. Is it this? It's not Clint's autopsy report. It's not this thing. There was no room for doubt with your instructions in this telegram, Mr. Sholmes. You were very clear that it was Judge Jigoku's office that should be searched. Okay, was the omen the names? I guess that would make sense. Very clear that it was Judge Jigoku's office that should be searched, so you obviously knew that's where the list of names would be found.
K. Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson.
But we only learned of those 4 names just over 6 months ago now, and only because they appeared as part of the top secret government communications that were leaked.
That's true, yes.
But at the time, you were unaware of the background. You see, those 4 names were wired to Japan. Around 6 months before that. Approximately this time last year, in fact, when you were both still in Japan. Okay, so it was that. It really would be hypocrisy on my part to reprove others for intercepting state secrets. Because after all, I'm perpetually eavesdropping on communications between the British and Japanese governments. You're perpetually doing what? How? Never mind the details, but you should know. No secret is safe from Herlock Sholmes when he has designs on knowing it. Oh my, Mr. Sholmes, what a fabulous line! Now, 1 month after that list of 4 names was wired to the recipient Jigoku in Japan, Dr. John H. Wilson was murdered. As soon as I learnt of the incident, a hypothesis rapidly took shape in my mind. As it turned out, I was partly correct and partly mistaken. Nevertheless, it was the beginning of all the tragic events that were to follow. Mr. Sholmes, please, tell us all you know. Tell us about these 4 names and the tragedy to which they're all somehow connected. Finally! Okay, let's get some answers. As I said, when I learnt of Dr. Wilson's murder in Japan, my mind immediately turned to those 4 names, because you see, there was someone else on the list who I believe to be recently deceased. What? Who? A Shin, as it was transcribed in Japanese script. In actual fact, Miss Asa Shin. That was a familiar name to me. She was a professional killer, well known among London's unsavory classes. Oh, I see. But she had completely vanished from existence several months before Wilson's murder. So I came to the logical conclusion that she had herself been killed. And accordingly, I became fearful for the lives of the remaining 2 persons on the list. Kei Asogi and T. Gregson! Owing to our proximity, I decided to take measures to protect Gregson myself. But I determined it would be safest if young Asogi were to stay away from Britain. Ah, so that's why you went to such lengths to prevent his study tour from going ahead. Exactly. So, you already knew who Kazuma-sama was? So you already knew who Kazuma-sama was, Mr. Sholmes?
Oh yes, Sholmes and I have exchanged correspondence for years. I've recounted many tales about Asogi to him in my letters, and the news of Dr. Wilson's death, of course.
So, Dr. Wilson is dead then? I didn't know.
Oh! Iris.
I know he wasn't my daddy, but still, that's very sad.
I'm so sorry, Iris. We knew the significance of the name, obviously, but we just couldn't bring ourselves to tell you.
No.
But what you just told us, Mr. Sholmes, doesn't completely tie in with the facts. There's one big hole in your hypothesis. A big hole, Mr. Naruhodo.
Ah yes, you mean about Asa Shin, I presume.
Oh, of course! Exactly. She wasn't killed, was she? She wasn't killed, was she? She was in Japan, posing as a visiting student under the assumed name of Josiah Brett. I'm glad you're keeping up, my dear fellow. But I only became aware of that fact 2 days ago, in the foyer of the Great Waterloo Hotel. Ah! And upon hearing that startling revelation, the hypothesis that I'd formed surrounding those 4 names was completely turned topsy. What? What? Topsy? Topsy hypothesis. What do you mean when you say your hypothesis was turned topsy, Mr. Sholmes? I had believed all 4 names on the list to be the names of victims. However, I was mistaken.
Very much so! Asa Shin was a killer! So this telegram is a list of both victims and killers, is it?
Indeed, and it would seem that Miss Shin was dispatched from Britain with the sole intention of dispatching Dr. Wilson. Her visiting student status being merely a front. Ah! Which would of course explain why no motive could be determined for her actions. So the real reason Dr. Wilson was killed by Assassin is because he was the target of an assassination. And forearmed with that knowledge, fresh consideration of this telegram. Okay, so Asogi was hired to kill Gregson. Puts the list in a very different perspective. What do you mean? Well, does it not strike you? There is another among the four, who subsequently became a visiting student. Wait, you mean... But of course, a name you know only too well. You mean... Kazuma?! Oh! He did say in court earlier today... Yes, on 31st October, I accompanied Inspector Gregson to Dunkirk in order to carry out a mission.
And the mission was?
The assassination of the Mark. Young Mr. Asogi accepted that mission a year ago now. Surely not. In conclusion, this document is a contract of sorts. An international agreement, one might say. Detailing an assassin exchange. An assassin exchange? How could Kazuma possibly have gotten involved in something like that?
Oh, this is getting intense.
Let's assume that we have two parties, each wishing to dispose of a distinct individual. Those two parties then make a contract to swap their respective assassination targets. That would then be an assassin exchange. So to begin with, the British assassin is dispatched as a visiting student to Japan, where she kills her target. And then, the Japanese assassin is dispatched as a visiting student to Britain in order to eliminate his target. It certainly does sound like an exchange. But what on earth is the point?
Don't forget, Naruhodo, that the British assassin at least escaped conviction. Thanks to diplomatic immunity afforded by consular jurisdiction.
Oh yes.
Such jurisdiction should be null and void under the terms of the new treaty between our two countries. So the fact that it was brought into place suggests intervention at the very highest levels.
Strongheart and Jigoku. The highest levels? These murders were two sides of the same coin, linked but not by a common motive but by contractual agreement. As such, they appeared utterly unrelated, yet in truth the assassins were complicit in one singular devilish scheme. That disassociation and the safeguard of diplomatic immunity were, I believe, the motivation behind this plot.
But wait a minute, Sholmes! If this telegram really is describing the exchange of assassins as you're suggesting, it would mean that the Japanese killer's target was never Seishiro Jigoku at all. It would mean Asogi's target was actually Inspector Gregson.
What? Kazuma was here for Gregson? So Judge Jigoku wasn't actually the mark? Yes, that's exactly what it would mean. I hold myself personally responsible for failing to keep the inspector safe. Mr. Sholmes. I told him of my fears and implored him to seek a transfer to an overseas position. Obviously, with the young pickpocket in tow. Yes, Gina.
Okay, so she was supposed to be the other passenger the whole time. Come to think of it, Inspector Gregson did mention that to us at the Great Exhibition, that he'd be transferring to the Paris police and taking Gina with him. But without informing me, he engaged in one last assignment, it seems, and sadly, it turned out to be his very last. This is too much to take in.
All right, everyone, that's quite enough of all that serious talk for one day. Isn't it, Hurley? I mean, look at the time.
Ah, quite right, Iris. We must conclude our preparations for tomorrow. What preparations? Well, I think I shall make my way back to my hotel room now. This has certainly been a night to remember.
It is a little bit sad, though. I mean, I like the idea of you being my daddy. Because then Susie would have been my big sister.
I'm sorry, Iris.
I know, Iris. I was thinking quite the same thing. Were you? But if somebody like me would be worthy, I'd be delighted to become your sister. What? Really? Oh yes, without question. So, you'll teach me all the ways you know to throw Runo to the floor? Yes, of course. It would be my pleasure.
You didn't have to agree quite so readily.
Oh, but wait a minute. If Susie's gonna be my big sister, you could be my big brother if you want, Runo.
Huh? I mean, yes, of course, if you'll have me, I'll gladly be your brother. Well done, Iris. We must always be mindful of feelings. I've raised you so well. Because being sensitive is your strong suit, naturally.
Right, I'm gonna work extra hard for tomorrow now, because it's for my big brother and sister.
What is all this talk about preparing for tomorrow? Preparing what?
You'll just have to wait and see.
Oh. Good luck in court tomorrow. I'm expecting a sterling performance. I'll do my very best, of course. So the overnight break in the trial's proceedings became a crucial turning point, exposing new truths whilst posing new conundrums. That list of 4 names on the telegram in Judge Jigoku's office, and the extraordinary assassination plot in which my best friend had somehow become involved. I felt as though I had been plunged into an even greater darkness all of a sudden, but at the same time, I felt sure I would see the light again soon. Because I was lucky enough to have the most wonderful family in the world standing steadfastly behind me. Oh, that was actually a really short investigation chapter. Okay. Alright, then we can keep going. Trial Part 2. Let's go. 4th November, 9:30 a.m. The Old Bailey Courtroom. Some slight chatter. This guy abusing the podium again. Before we begin today, I have a brief announcement. As with the closed trial 10 years ago, some astonishing facts have come to light in these proceedings. The revelation that the well-known Reaper is actually an organization illegally executing its own brand of justice. And the discovery that a respected yard inspector was at its heart until he himself perished in an assassination plot. Well, I say to all members of the judiciary here present on this occasion, that we will stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth behind these disturbing findings.
Yeah, about that, buddy.
Counsels, you will undertake this trial with the resolve to pursue the truth to the bitter end.
Resolve, yes. That's my intention.
My lord, if I may inquire. The defendant may speak. On what grounds is Kazuma Asogi permitted to continue in his role as prosecutor?
Thank you! Thank you, Van Zeeks! Oh my god! This whole thing, this... wow, he really is the only voice of reason here. Thank you. Okay, let's keep going. Let's see.
He has admitted to colluding with the victim in a plot to assassinate an innocent man. He shouldn't be enjoying the privilege of freedom, let alone be leading the prosecution.
I submitted a written petition to Lord Strongheart, requesting the judgment of my transgressions be delayed by 1 day.
You did what?
In today's proceedings, I intend to expose everything. My whole life for the last 10 years has all been leading up to this 1 day. Kazuma. Whatever the outcome of this trial. Yes, and Strongheart allowing that should call Strongheart into question. You can't see it, but I'm looking right at the camera right now. This is ridiculous. Whatever the outcome of this trial, I give my word that I will accept whatever punishment is deemed appropriate, however severe. And I suggest you prepare yourself for the same, Reaper. Kazuma is bristling with hostility today. I get the distinct impression we're heading into very dangerous territory.
Is that really even Kazuma-sama standing before us?
He's blinded by revenge for his father.
As an extreme exception to normal practices, I have granted this prosecutor's request. The defense finds this acceptable, I presume?
No. Yes, my lord! Because Ryunosuke's an idiot too, right.
In that case, in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session again. We resume the closed hearing of Barak Van Zeeks.
The defense is ready, my lord. The prosecution is more than ready.
Very well then. This preamble has taken long enough. Prosecutor Asogi, begin!
As you wish, my lord. The prosecution calls the first witness to the stand. Bring Seishiro Jigoku into the courtroom. At last, then, we've reached the final battle. He's putting literally everything on the line now in order to get to the truth. I get the feeling next week's going to be the final stream of this. Come on, Ryunosuke, it's time for that steely resolve, because this is going to test it to the limit! End boss music, let's go. Witness, state your name and occupation for the court.
So it was you who issued this, was it?
Your subpoena? I did what was necessary.
Well, look what the young man has become. I didn't think I'd see the day when you'd take that tone with me, I must say. The witness will ensure his responses are pertinent to the questions asked. My name is Seishiro Jigoku, a Supreme Court judge from the Empire of Japan.
16 years ago, this man came to London as a visiting student. 6 years later, he returned to Japan. As well as presiding over the Supreme Court, he is also currently Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs.
I am, of course, fully aware of Mr. Jigoku and his preeminent roles.
Hello, Kecleon! You missed a massive info dump! So, to recap, it came out that, Okay, so if you remember at the end of the first half at the end of the first half of this series of cases, a list of 4 names was leaked. This list of 4 names had been sent from a high-ranking British official to a high-ranking Japanese official. We now know two new things. One, the recipient of the recipient in Japan of this secret message was Seishiro Jigoku, the judge guy. And 2, we know that it was an assassin exchange. It was names. There was a deal between high-ranking officials in Britain and in Japan. Asashin would come from Britain and go to Japan to kill John Wilson. In exchange, Kazuma Asogi was to go to Britain and kill Tobias Gregson. This is what we uncovered. Oh yeah, and also Iris knows John Wilson is dead now and is sad about it. But even though she knows he wasn't her father, and neither was Mikotoba. Yes. So we basically confirmed that Jigoku is one of the bad guys. Yeah. It's looking to me, my guess is that Strongheart was the sender of the message. But we don't know that. Yeah, we don't know that yet. The answer to that is yes, but yeah. Yeah, Strongheart is as sus as they come at this point. And yeah, apparently the reason that Sholmes had lied about Kazuma and said that he was dead was he was trying to stop Kazuma from reaching Britain. He was under the assumption that, imagine if they bait and switch and Iris was the sender. No, we know that whoever sent it was high-ranking in the British government. We know that. Iris is not. So, but no, what was I saying? Right, yeah. When Sholmes had seen the list of 4 names a year ago, he had initially assumed that all 4 of the names were assassination targets, because shortly after learning of that list of names, he learned that John Wilson was dead, and he had reason to believe that Asashin was also dead because she had disappeared. And so because of this, he had been trying to protect Gregson as best he could, because they were both in Britain. But he figured it would be easiest if he just stopped Kazuma from reaching Britain in the first place to protect him from whoever was carrying out these hits. And the reason that he encouraged Ryunosuke to go in Kazuma's place was to stall Kazuma even longer. Sholmes did not know until 3 days prior to right now in the game. He didn't know that he only just found out that Asashin was the killer of John Wilson, not a fellow target. So now the hypothesis is the assassin exchange that I described. But Sholmes admitted that we don't have any concrete evidence for this yet. But it does line up with what we have. So there. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. Oh, right. Iris has officially adopted Susato and Ryunosuke as older siblings. Now. Yes. So we're all one big family now. Oh, and also, I did in fact confirm that this came off the top of Gregson's pocket watch. And we know that we know that Jigoku is involved with this list of 4 names because Yujin Mikotoba sent a telegram. The urgent telegram that had to be sent out was to Inspector Hosonaga to ask him to go through Jigoku's office and try to find a list of 4 names. And this was a return telegram from Hosonaga that was sent to Mikotoba and Sholmes. Record found as indicated, duplicate follows, and it's the same 4 names that Sholmes suspected he would find in Jigoku's office, which confirms that Jigoku is in on whatever's going on. There. I think that's enough of a recap. Oh yes, and just before you showed up, Van Zieks brought up the question of, okay, why are we allowing Asogi to continue prosecuting this case, right? Which is a very good question. But apparently he said, "Oh yeah, I petitioned Strongheart to stall my own trial, my own case for 1 day just to finish up this case, and Strongheart allowed it." And I'm just like, yeah, that just brings up further questions as to whether Strongheart should be allowed to continue participating in this trial in any official capacity, right? It's just even more ridiculous. Sadly, there was no Van Zieks facepalm in response to this, but I facepalmed. Massive conflict of interest. Yeah.
I am, of course, fully aware of Mr. Jigoku and his preeminent roles. I invited him personally to the International Forensic Science Symposium as a representative of his country. I hear he also played a key role in the conclusion of the Anglo-Japanese Treaty of Friendship and Navigation.
Oh, right. The motive for the supposed assassin exchange was simply diplomatic immunity on both sides. Because remember, they weren't actually able to sentence Jazai Brett Asashin. Instead, she was killed by some rogue reporter who was like, "This is BS, man!" Right? And so Sholmes figures that they knew that would happen, and that's why they did this assassin exchange in the first place, so that both the assassins could get off scot-free. And the reason we know that high-ranking British and Japanese officials were involved here is that they would have to be the ones to have set this up, because only they would have known that Britain and Japan were actually in the middle of working on a treaty, presumably this one that Strongheart just mentioned, that would stop such a plan from working, that would render such diplomatic immunity null and void. I think it was Mikotoba who brought that up at the time. So that was the plot, or at least that is the plot as we know it now.
I hear he also played a key role in the conclusion of the Anglo-Japanese Treaty of Friendship and Navigation. It was a great honor to be involved in the negotiations. I put my all into that treaty.
Judge Jigoku, I must ask.
Well, I never. Fancy the young murdering student turning up here of all places.
You acquitted me yourself. And now I'm a practicing defense lawyer.
Yes, and full of self-importance like your friend across the courtroom, I see.
You came here to London by invitation to the International Forensic Science Symposium. But then, without informing anyone of your plans, you took flight to France.
Took flight? I'd have to object to that turn of phrase.
Then explain yourself. What exactly were the circumstances?
Well, I was somewhat expecting this. And I'm sorry to say, I decline to comment.
Oh, here we go.
What?
Leaving the country prematurely when I was an invited guest may be questionable etiquette. But my decision is unrelated to this case. I can't be bound to testify.
That is false. Unless you're invoking the right against self-incrimination. Yeah, see...
Unrelated, you say?
Yes, well, I mean... The judge did it, in this case. We're pretty sure. So that doesn't really help.
I appreciate that a respected police inspector has been killed, for which I offer my condolences. However, being an alien, I've obviously never met the man, nor do I know the first thing about him. As such, I'm in no position to testify. It's as simple as that.
So you would run from all this?
I beg your pardon.
This case is more far-reaching than the murder of Inspector Gregson.
No, yeah. The end of our last, the Judge Jigoku looked pretty sus at the end of last week's stream, if you ask me.
It has ties to another murder, a case that was tried in Japan almost a year ago now.
A year ago in Japan. The murder of Dr. John H. Wilson, you mean? That's right, and you, Judge Jigoku, are at the heart of both cases. The defense has evidence to prove it. Well, Ryunosuke, I see from the look in your eyes that you're resolved to carry this through to the very end, too. You're resolved to carry this through. Yeah. Let's see your evidence, then. What proof do you have that Seishiro Jigoku is involved in this case? The names!
Take that!
This is a telegram detailing a communication sent between Britain and Japan approximately 1 year ago. The communication contained 4 names: Kei Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, and J. Wilson.
Hold it! You little... Where did you get that?
Here we go. Here we go. In Tokyo, from your office, Judge Jigoku.
What? How on earth did you...
What's this all about? Why is my name on that list? This list of 4 names follows a certain pattern. T. Gregson and J. Wilson are the names of victims. Kei Asogi and A. Shin are the names of assassins. No. A year ago in Tokyo, Dr. John H. Wilson's life was taken in a Western-style restaurant in the capital. The culprit was found to be a visiting student who went by the name of Jazai Brett. But her real name was Asa Shin, a professional killer sent on a mission to kill from Great Britain.
A. Shin and her victim, J. Wilson.
And the murder that just took place here in London was the counterpart to that crime. An assassin sent from Japan, also a visiting student, Kazuma Asogi, whose victim was the British police inspector Tobias Gregson.
Kei Asogi and T. Gregson. One assassin from each country to kill a target residing in the other.
What exactly is the defense suggesting?
These 2 cases of murder, one that took place in Britain and one in Japan, were masterminded by a pair of individuals from each country as a form of assassin exchange. And the telegram the defense has acquired is proof of this international contract to kill. What? The telegram was found in your office, Judge Jigoku. Foreign exchange assassins. Yep. Seems that way. In other words, the mastermind in Japan was you! Judge Jigoku, what's this all about? And you, Kazuma, you lied.
During yesterday's proceedings, you acknowledged that you'd accepted the assassination mission. But the mark wasn't Judge Jigoku at all. It was T. Gregson, Detective Inspector of Scotland Yard, as shown by the name on the killing contract. Very impressive, Ryunosuke. But actually, I didn't lie. The name of the target I was ordered to kill never passed my lips yesterday. The idea that Seishiro Jigoku was the mark came entirely from you. Ah! You deliberately avoided saying a name? A lie of omission, huh? The defense claims these 4 names indicate some sort of international assassin exchange. I'm sure I speak for all present when I say that the very idea seems utterly absurd. Well, Mr. Jigoku, what do you have to say for yourself? His silence only goes to prove his guilt!
There's another very important point that this new development brings to light. There's no distinct possibility that the scene of Inspector Gregson's actual murder was in the witness's cabin aboard the SS Grouse.
Judge Jigoku, you have to testify now. To refuse will put you in contempt of court. There's no need for quite such a vicious stare, young man. Very well then, as a parting gift to you all, I'll tell you everything I know. It seems this Japanese gentleman has information that the court must hear about the alleged assassin exchange and the events of the night of the 31st October. Present your formal testimony now. As you wish, my lord. Oh yes. I don't know if I showed you this. Remember, the fact that we found this on the SS Grouse, where we did, strongly suggests that Inspector Gregson was in Jigoku's cabin at one point. Likely the point of the murder, because this watch was broken, right? The pocket watch was found on Gregson's person in that empty room, if you remember, the secret office. But this top piece had been broken off, and this was actually found in the cabin. Which is pretty sus. The assassin exchange. It's true that Kazuma Asogi was assigned the assassination mission 1 year ago now. The target was Inspector T. Gregson. That was a condition of the British study tour. However, in the end, something happened that meant the young man was unable to carry out his mission. On the evening in question, a member of the crew was on duty outside my cabin at all times. Fun fact / reminder, I'm listening. Gregson is a common Sherlock Holmes character. Oh, I didn't... Adapted as Thomas Gregson in Element... Oh, I didn't realize that. I thought he had been a setup. Like, he kind of fills the role of Inspector Lestrade throughout this entire series, but then we get Gina Lestrade, the pickpocket, who is then taken in by Gregson as as an inspector in training. So then she goes around telling everyone she's Inspector Lestrade, and I thought that whole thing was just to set that up. Interesting, though. On the evening in question, a member of the crew was on duty outside my cabin at all times. If there had been a shot fired, the crewman would have heard it, so clearly I can't be involved. Let's see. Okay. At the end, something happened that meant the young man was unable to carry out his... On the evening in question, a member of the crew was on duty outside your cabin at all times. Okay. There'd been a shot fired, he would have heard it. Lestrade is also a Holmesian character. G. Lestrade. Yes, I knew that. I knew Lestrade is I knew Lestrade was a Holmesian character. I knew that. Not Gregson, though. So you admit it, then. As this communication suggests, there really was an assassin exchange arrangement between Britain and Japan.
A political endeavor at the highest levels. Not something I can discuss here.
To use such a worthy practice as foreign study to coerce somebody to commit murder. It's the most appalling thing I've ever heard.
Appalling? Well, it's easy to judge.
Pardon?
Asogi had a reason for taking his sword to that British inspector, you know.
What?
Which is why he accepted the mission in the first place. Isn't that right, Counsel?
Kazuma-sama?
Judge Shigoku, if you are the mastermind behind this operation in Japan, then tell the court the identity of your counterpart in Britain.
I'm not obliged to divulge that information.
Yes, you are. It'd probably be a bad idea. I'll admit it'd probably be a bad idea to disclose it now, due to the fact that the party in question is to your left. Actually, no. Let me think about the present. It is directly in front of you. Yeah. As I said yesterday, I've killed nobody. I freely admit that I accepted the mission, but on the night the plan was to be executed, I backed out. In short, this assassin exchange that the defense has identified is unrelated to the events of this case. Doesn't the witness sit next to the judge? The witness sits opposite the judge in this courtroom I've seen. The witness... Okay, the witness faces... Okay, the witness faces away from the exit door to the courtroom and towards the judge, who is at the very back of the room. And the 6 jury members, there are seats for 6 jury members along a row in front of the judge.
The crucial point is this. Your police inspector can't have perished aboard that steamship in Dunkirk. Because if he'd been shot in the cabin, it's inconceivable that a member of the crew wouldn't have heard it.
You had a sock in the... You had a sock in the thing, the sound thing, the emergency system thing, the call the crew thing. That's right. Gregson was killed after returning to London, in the room on Fresno Street. And the perpetrator of the crime was the Reaper, Barak Van Zeeks. The prosecution's accusation remains unchanged.
To think that a seemingly innocent foreign exchange program was a facade for such Machiavellian dealings. Clearly, it's a plot only a government minister and high-ranking judge such as the witness could hope to execute. Well, I seem to recall that it was someone on the British side who controlled everything. Be that as it may, it is not the place of this court to pursue this villainous assassin exchange plot. We are concerned only with the tangible events pertaining to the murder of Inspector Gregson. Is the defense clear on that point, Counsel?
Yes, my lord. I'll keep that in mind as I cross-examine the witness. Okay, only with the tangible events pertaining to the murder of Inspector Gregson. Okay, so Strongheart is going to shut down any line of inquiry that is not related to the murder of Inspector Gregson. Which sucks, but surely there's a way around it. Okay.
It's true that Kazuma Asogi was assigned the assassination mission 1 year ago.
Okay, I'm gonna press him to see if I can get something more concrete that contradicts the presence of this component in his cabin on the Grouse.
Hold it!
A year ago, when Kazuma was still in Japan then.
Correct. It was at the examination center for applicants for the study tour that I approached him.
I'll never forget it. I remember exactly what you said.
You just came out and asked me forthright if I'd consider traveling to Britain on an assassination mission.
Surely not!
I thought it was a joke at first, of course, but then it was made clear to me that if I didn't accept, I wouldn't be considered for the study tour.
So you agreed to it just for that? I mean, I know how much you wanted to study in England, but assassination?
The Empire of Japan had accepted a proposal from the British Empire at the time. An agreement to send a student from each country to the others to deepen cultural understanding and friendship. But behind the scenes, the chosen students were to be given assassination missions. I had no choice but to accept the proposal that originated from my British counterpart.
Why? Why didn't you expose the plot there and then?
Britain acknowledges no part in these alleged misbegotten dealings. I advise you not to make spurious allegations, Foreign Minister Jigoku.
As a witness, I am bound to tell the truth, my lord. Anyway, I picked Asuki and explained the details of the plan to him.
Why Kazuma? Why did you pick him as the assassin?
He was the most capable of all the applicants, and in addition, I knew his desire to travel to Britain was very strong. In fact, it was almost more than a desire, it was his whole purpose in life.
Yes, as his best friend, I can certainly attest to that. The way he threw himself into his studies, the way he pursued becoming qualified as a lawyer. It was all ultimately for that one single goal of being accepted on a study tour to Britain.
And of course, we know the reason behind that. He was determined to find out for himself the truth about his father, Genshin Asogi.
There's nothing I wouldn't have done to get here. Be that agreeing to assume the role of an assassin or betraying people's trust.
Well, you certainly did a fine job of betraying mine, Asogi.
But why was Inspector Gregson the target?
I have no idea. Those were the orders from Britain. I was in no position to question them.
You have no idea? Really? I find that hard to believe.
Oh, do you?
Judge Jigoku was once a visiting student here in Britain himself, of course. Perhaps he has some connection with Inspector Gregson from that time.
The defense really ought to catch up.
With what?
With the fact that the assassin exchange has absolutely nothing to do with the case under scrutiny here. Yes, I've already admitted to recruiting Asoki. However, in the end, something happened that meant the young man was unable to carry out his mission.
What happened?
Hold it!
I presume you're referring to the incident that occurred during Kazuma's passage to Britain in January? Everyone thought he died. The awful tragedy that took place on the steamship.
Word arrived at the ministry some 2 weeks after the ship's departure from our shores. The visiting student had been killed, but his body had somehow gone missing in Hong Kong. The news was wired to me from a detective I'd placed on the ship to accompany the assassin.
Obviously, Kazuma didn't actually die at all, but he did lose his memory, including all details about his special mission.
Did you not consider dispatching another assassin at that point?
That wasn't possible, simply because that black-clad young student over there had already put himself forward as Asogi's replacement, and there was no way to stop him from reaching Britain.
Ah!
My hands were completely tied.
So Mr. Sholmes' strategy worked perfectly. He predicted everything that would happen. Months later, my memory returned, but I'd never intended to go through with the assassination mission anyway.
So you were playing me right from the outset, were you? Is that it?
I'd sooner be guilty of that crime than of taking someone else's life. I was prepared to do whatever I had to in order to get myself here to Britain.
This line of questioning has gone on long enough. All the court should be concerned about in the testimony given by this witness are details relating to his relationship with Inspector Gregson and the victim's murder.
In that case, as I've already made perfectly clear, I had no connection to the man or his death. And you have some means of substantiating this plea?
Outside your cabin in the first class area of the SS Grouse, you mean?
Yes, that's right. Not least because there was a murder of a student passenger earlier in the year, I imagine. The liner operators have taken to posting a crewman outside every first-class cabin door.
I can confirm the presence of the crewman guard myself. What do you mean? Because I accompanied Inspector Gregson to Dunkirk that night, I witnessed it with my own eyes. There was a well-built crewman standing guard directly in front of the door to the witness's cabin. Chicken Stroganoff!
At that particular time, of course, I'd gone to the ship's dining room for dinner.
The inspector and I asked the crewman to allow us into the cabin while we waited for Judge Jigoku's return. I suppose Inspector Gregson was there in his capacity as the Reaper. He was intending to take the witness's life. I'm just reviewing this for my own purposes here. Let's see. Ask the crewman to allow us. Okay. While we waited for Judge Jigoku's return. Inspector was there. Okay. Yes. Exactly. As I've said numerous times now, I had no intention of killing anyone. So the crewman let two potential assassins into the cabin he was supposed to be guarding? Not the most convincing of sentries, really. In truth, those were my thoughts too. But anyway, I stayed to talk with Inspector Gregson for a short while. And then I left him there and made my way off the ship alone. Was the guard still at the door when you went? Yes. He glared at me as I walked past.
You see? That proves it. If there'd been a shot fired, the crewman would have heard it, so clearly I can't be involved.
Hold it! The crewman who was standing directly outside your cabin door, you mean?
That's right. A muscular man with a permanent grim expression on his face. He didn't once move from that spot. To be honest, I thought he was a miserable fellow. But as it happens, he's a vital witness now! Ha ha!
There's no doubt that Gregson was killed by a gunshot, and it's inconceivable that a crewman standing just outside the cabin door wouldn't have heard that. But wait, what about the ship's enormous steam engines? The noise of them could have drowned out the sound of the gun being fired.
Sadly, young judicial assistant, that won't wash.
Oh,
You'll recall that my cabin was in the first-class area of the ship, which is also, of course, the quietest. Don't imagine for a moment that it's anything like steerage where the judicial assistants go.
I didn't mean...
But a hole like that made by a bullet was found in your cabin, Judge Jigoku. That's compelling evidence that a gun was fired in there. What's that? A bullet hole?
Oh yes, you're talking about what the detective uncovered in the wall yesterday, I presume. That was obviously a rotten panel eaten out by woodworm. No doubt he didn't find an actual bullet.
That's the hole in this argument.
Sadly, I was unable to arrange for the crewman to be brought back to Britain with me. But obviously, if a gun had been fired in my cabin on the night in question, as the defense implies, I would have been arrested on the spot and would never have made it to Britain in the first place.
Very true. The witness's logic is sound, since no gunshot was heard from the witness's cabin on the night in question. We must assume that the witness is telling the truth.
I'm glad you've seen sense, my lord.
I know Kazuma's already admitted to taking on this incredible assassination plot, but even so, hearing it confirmed by somebody else is still a real shock.
It's unforgivable, using Kazuma-sama's feelings to manipulate him into agreeing to such a despicable plan.
But I think Kazuma manipulated Judge Jigoku too. He completely double-crossed him.
Oh dear, it's hard not to see that as a stroke of brilliance on Kazuma-sama's part.
One way or another, though, Gregson ended up dead. I really think that the murder must have happened aboard that steamship.
So you mean...
Judge Jigoku must be lying.
I know I shouldn't let my emotions cloud my judgment, but you must destroy him, Mr. Naruhodo.
British study tour, something happened. Wait a minute.
Right. Following departure, all crew members are required to assemble on the main deck at 10 p.m. in order to review evacuation procedures. The drill will take 20 minutes. The gunshot was fired while they were gone. Screw you!
Objection.
Yes, as the court has heard, there was a crewman posted outside Judge Jigoku's cabin. However, we can be sure that contrary to the witness's claim, the guard wasn't there at all times. What? I have here a notice of a particular event that was scheduled to take place aboard the steamship on the 31st.
What? Where did you get that?
It's evidence gathered by Mr. Herlock Sholmes. You were acquainted yesterday, if you remember.
Herlock Sholmes again!
According to this itinerary, after leaving the port of Dunkirk at exactly 10 p.m. and for a period of 20 minutes, all crewmen of the SS Grouse were to gather on deck for an evacuation drill. All crewmen were away from their posts? And during that 20-minute interval, of course, any gunshots emanating from your cabin would have been heard by no one. In summary, Judge Jigoku, you had ample opportunity to commit the crime. See, this is how they're arranged.
Objection.
A 20-minute window of opportunity. That's an excellent find, Ryunosuke. But it amounts to nothing. Why? Because the witness clearly stated in his testimony that no incident occurred in his cabin. Unless you have some decisive evidence that can show his testimony to be false. Your accusation is nothing more than conjecture.
Very true. Well, counsel?
I have evidence. Inspector Gregson was killed in Judge Jigoku's cabin that night. I'm certain of it. Because the defense has the evidence to prove it.
You will present the evidence for the defense at once, counsel. What proof do you have that the victim's life was taken in Jigoku's cabin on the 31st October?
Take that.
Judge Jigoku, this was found in your cabin yesterday.
What is that? The crown of a pocket watch? A pocket watch?
And if you will observe, the victim's pocket watch, which we know he treasured, is missing precisely that part.
It can't be.
Moreover, this crown is a perfect fit on the spindle protruding from the victim's watch. Now, the fact that this was retrieved from Judge Jigoku's cabin tells us that the victim's watch almost certainly broke there. In other words, the victim was killed on the 31st during the 20-minute evacuation drill in the cabin occupied by you, Judge Jigoku.
Well, you're razor sharp, aren't you, you young murderer?
Objection.
Expertly maneuvered, Ryunosuke. And your argument sounds entirely plausible. At first. But rather like this pocket watch, it's full of cracks. What? And I believe Judge Jigoku feels the same way.
I was wrong to acquit you earlier in the year.
Sorry?
If I'd known that it would result in anyone having to listen to this drivel, I would have declared you guilty just to spare the world your ridiculous bombast. I think it's clear that the witness will have to give further testimony. When you hear what actually happened in my cabin that night, you'll notice the pitfall into which you've stumbled.
That is extremely unethical, yes.
Prior to your renewed testimony, I would like to clarify one point. The fact that this part of the victim's watch was discovered in your cabin means that you acknowledge he was there, I presume?
Yes, I do.
Very well then. You may proceed to give your formal testimony about what exactly happened in your cabin aboard the ship on the evening of the 31st October.
Of course. As a man of the law, I have no intention of obstructing justice.
How many lies has he told? Like, I lost count there. The events in the cabin.
I had a guest waiting for me when I returned to my cabin after finishing my evening meal in the dining room. When I walked through the door, a mustachioed Englishman was there, foolishly waving a gun at me. I soon took care of him with any bonseo he threw, though. He couldn't wait to run away after that. I imagine his watch was broken when I threw him over my shoulder. It has nothing to do with his murder. The inspector was clearly killed having returned to Britain, because his body was found in London.
Ippon Seoi.
A common jujutsu martial arts technique in my country. I was careful not to use too much force, but the man obviously landed too heavily for his watch to take.
Sarinosuke Naruhodo. I imagine you can see the flaw in your logic now, can't you? What? The fact that the pocket watch was broken in the witness's cabin in no way proves that the victim's murder took place there.
Ah! I've no doubt the inspector intended to kill me. But he didn't manage to pull the trigger.
Yes, because he was merely the tactician, not the Reaper's hand of death.
Well, the testimony appears to make perfect sense as far as I can tell.
Let me express my deep gratitude for your understanding, my lord.
But if this testimony holds, Judge Shigoku will be deemed to have had no involvement in the case.
Well, counsel, I really see no reason for wasting precious court time here on a cross-examination.
General rule, if it's wasting Strongheart's time, it's probably a good idea. Sorry, my lord, the defense has a right to cross-examine, and I don't intend to squander that.
You're an embarrassment to your countrymen, not knowing when you're beaten.
In that case, proceed, Mr. Naruhodo.
Okay, I'm just gonna review the evidence that I have. Okay, the names, the drill, the component. Okay, I've used all those. So I guess we're back to this stuff. Okay.
Hold it!
Because the so-called guard posted at your cabin door had just let your killer pass, you mean?
Apparently Gregson told the crewman he was a police inspector, which was the truth, of course.
He wouldn't have had his identification with him, though.
He had his trench coat and mustache, not to mention the bag of chips. I imagine the crewman was convinced.
But the man accompanying him would have had two swords slung around his waist. You mean me? Who else?
Yes, that's true. You would have hoped the sight of a few swords might have set off alarm bells in the guard's head.
The point is, I left the cabin before its occupant returned, and I immediately disembarked the ship.
Certainly, all I can tell you is that only the inspector was waiting for me when I arrived back at my cabin.
And you entered without any inkling of suspicion?
That's right. None whatsoever.
Hold it!
Obviously, you're talking about Inspector Gregson.
Yes, though at the time I didn't know the man's name. And there was no time for introductions. I value my life over manners.
By which you mean that the inspector was there to assassinate you, I suppose?
That was certainly the impression given by the gun pointing in my direction. But I've never seen the muzzle of a revolver shake about so much in all my life. Anyone would think the man had never shot somebody before.
Believe it or not, most of us haven't.
Anyway, there was no time to call for the help of the crewman at the door, so I dealt with the man myself. I soon took care of him with any Banseo he threw.
Boop.
Hold it!
Even though the man had a gun? That was a very brave move, wasn't it?
My Banseo is far faster than a bullet, I can assure you.
But surely all that commotion caused the crewman to come in, didn't it?
Yes, of course. He burst in immediately without knocking. The inspector hurled himself at the stocky fellow and just managed to slip past him to make his escape.
The outstanding guard does it again.
Luckily, there aren't many situations I can't get out of using a quick cape on Saoe throw.
Hold it!
The crown snapped off and the glass covering the face of the watch was cracked.
Preferable to the man's head being pulled off or his spine cracking, wouldn't you say?
Not that the man was spared for long. A bullet to the chest soon saw to that. But the point is, the broken pocket watch doesn't prove that a murder took place.
Absolutely not! All the watch proves is the power of my jujutsu throw!
Whatever you say, it doesn't quite ring true that no shot was fired in that cabin. Because there was an obvious bullet hole in the wall.
What are you talking about? That's what the star of your lowbrow detective stories told you, is it? Well, I don't care for such fiction. Haven't you worked it out yet, you little stripling? No murder took place in my cabin.
Hold it!
But there's no evidence that proves the victim ever returned to London alive.
Just take a moment to think that idea of yours through now, stripling.
What?
If the inspector was killed on the steamship in France, how on earth could he have got back to Britain? When people die, their bodies remain at that same spot. It's a devil of a thing.
Well, then obviously the culprit must have moved the body.
How exactly? Carrying a corpse off a ship in your arms would raise a few eyebrows at least, don't you think?
Well, yes, that's true, but in your suitcase, Jigoku. You proved a man could fit in it because you fit in it yourself. Oh.
All passenger luggage is inspected when it is unloaded from arriving vessels, and I would like to think the border police would query the corpse of an English gentleman as hand luggage.
If the murder had taken place aboard the ship, you would imagine the body would have been disposed of at sea. No, they wanted to frame Van Zieks. There would be no sense in risking being caught by attempting to transport the body back to Britain. Ugh, that's killed that idea then. But perhaps not. Miss Susato? We've heard that the first-class passengers were under constant scrutiny by the crewmen posted to guard them. Which would mean that the culprit had no opportunity to dispose of the body in the sea. Yes, that's true. So transporting the body to Britain may have been the only viable alternative.
Dear me, you really are new to this, aren't you? I thought I'd been perfectly clear, but it seems I'm gonna have to explain it in words you can understand. I think I ought to alter my testimony. With your consent, of course, my lord.
I have no objection. State your amended testimony now.
Here we go.
There's no possible way I could have transported the victim's corpse back to Britain.
Like I said, in your suitcase. There's an idea. There's an idea.
Think about it, stripling. All passengers and crew disembarked at the same time and passed through the same checks at the border. The symposium guests were then driven straight to the hotel in carriages organized by the ministry.
And we met you as soon as you arrived at the hotel.
So you did. Well then, remind me, did I have a corpse over my shoulder at the time?
You had a large suitcase
What? No!
So we're in agreement then. I couldn't possibly have brought the inspector's body back to Britain. Unless, of course, they've developed some clever device these days to instantly move things from A to B.
Funny you should say that.
Professor Harebrain's invention didn't actually work, if you remember, Mr. Naruhodo.
Yes, of course.
The defense has become unusually quiet, I notice.
Yes, because there's really nothing more to say.
So that's his story.
Well, I suppose if you think about it, whenever you drop a teacup in the office and it breaks, we don't say Mr. Naruhodo must have been murdered there, do we?
Is that a veiled threat about what might happen to me if I break another one?
And the fact is that Inspector Gregson's body was found in the little room on Fresno Street. If he really was killed in Judge Jigoku's cabin,
The body would have to have been moved somehow, obviously. Transporting a dead body over a country border, that would be impossible for the majority of people. So there must have been some special circumstances that made it possible for the culprit then.
that could be a vital realization, I think, Mr. Naruhodo.
Okay, so the idea is that if he brought him in the suitcase, then the suitcase would have been inspected and they would have found... Okay. Present. Some special circumstance. Oh, if I... Is it this? Here we go! Okay. There's no possible way you could have moved Inspector Gregson's body, you say. I would say the opposite is true.
And what's that supposed to mean?
Far from being impossible for you to do. The transporting of Inspector Gregson's body back to Britain is something only you could do. What are you talking about, Ryunosuke? As well as being a judge, Mr. Jigoku is also Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs, which means he's exempt from having his luggage searched when he enters the country. Wait, what? I mean, I suspected that, but how would we know that? Oh, we learned that when we first met you upon your arrival in London. Did he say it himself? Well, all those passport checks and luggage searches at the border took rather a lot of time. I must say, I'm very envious of your ministerial status. You didn't have to go through any of that, did you?
I knew you were jealous.
Here we go. I presume you recall this, Judge Jigoku? It's a photograph we took in the foyer of the hotel to mark the occasion. As the court will note, you have with you your large travel trunk. Large enough, in fact, to have a corpse inside.
Mr. Naruhodo, surely you're not suggesting...
I'm afraid I am, yes. 3 days ago, when we were chatting innocently with the new arrivals from Japan in the hotel, the body of Inspector Gregson was just meters away from us inside Judge Jigoku's trunk.
Order! Order!
Sorry, wrong voice. Order! Order! Order in court! See, the two are so heinous, I'm getting them mixed up.
I'm skeptical, counsel, that a grown man's body could fit inside even the largest travel trunk.
It could. Because I happen to know that the witness himself, a man of considerable size, fits inside his trunk. And verifying that would be extremely simple, wouldn't it, Judge Jigoku? No, you're skeptical. Ah, fair enough. Are you saying that you did this?
But inside his trunk... How horrifying!
And after we'd spoken with you at the Great Waterloo Hotel, you had the opportunity to visit the apparent scene on Fresno Street, taking your trunk with you in a cab to deposit the inspector's body.
I don't have to listen to this nonsense!
Dr. Gory, the coroner who examined the body, has confirmed the possibility.
She's acknowledged there are signs that the steps may have been taken to disguise the true time of death. The onset of the body's decomposition could have been delayed by storing it in a refrigerator.
Counsel, as I remember explaining yesterday, refrigerators of the requisite size are few and far between.
There's one on the ship! Yes, I'm sure they are. But one place they're certainly found is on large ocean liners. Such ships are equipped with electrically refrigerated cold rooms to keep food fresh on their long sea voyages, and the SS Grouse is no exception. Professor Mikotoba told me about it only yesterday. Well, Judge Shigoku? However much you prolong this debate, you can't eliminate the truth. All the evidence points to you being the killer.
Well, this is all very heartening. I can see that it was a wise move, letting Asogi and you embark on this study tour.
What are you talking about now?
Logical reasoning, of course. All court proceedings will be built on logical reasoning in the new century. And I can see that you've both laid firm foundations for that already.
Judge Shigoku, please stop diverting attention from the issue at hand. The defense has made an accusation against you. How do you respond?
Respond? There's really no need for me to respond, is there? There's really no need for me to respond, is there?
Why ever not?
Because before you can even begin to answer the question of when the victim was killed, you must first establish one key fact. Where was the victim killed? It's quite logical.
The actual scene of the crime. The prosecution's stance is unaltered. The killing took place on Fresno Street when the gunshot was heard. As the accused, Barak Van Zieks shot the victim at point-blank range.
Since no tangible evidence exists to disprove the prosecution's claim at this time, the defense's deductions amount to little more than an elaborate fairy tale.
That's not how this works!
I'm afraid that's how the logical reasoning the British are known for really works, young stripling.
The victim was shot in that little room on Fresno Street and died instantly. I'm afraid it's the prosecution's claim that's the only fairy tale here. How can you say that? How can you say that? Quite simply, because that claim directly contradicts a certain piece of evidence in our possession.
Very tantalizing, counsel. I think you would better explain yourself to the court, don't you?
The prosecution claims that Inspector Gregson died instantly when he was shot at the scene on Fresno Street. But this evidence clearly contradicts that claim. That he died instantly? Let's see. Okay, so apparently I have a piece of evidence here somewhere that contradicts the claim that Inspector Gregson died instantly when he was shot at the scene on Fresno Street. Appears to be tightly curled up, and there's a red hairpiece on his head. Is it that this thing hadn't been wound? Is it that this thing hadn't been wound when the body was found? Let's try it.
Okay, just making sure. He would have been able to wind it up with the key in lieu of the crown.
Take that!
The Japanese really are a curious breed. To proffer an argument with such conviction only to present such nonsensical evidence.
Perhaps my Japanese friend's inexplicable thinking is why people talk of the mystique of the East. In case you hadn't noticed, I'm not the only Japanese around here. Do you even have a mirror?
The court is not interested in the mystique of anything. You will be penalized accordingly.
Was the victim killed in the room on Fresno Street? Or was he moved there after his death? There's one piece of evidence we have that shows the answer to that question surprisingly clearly.
Perhaps you should try to present the correct one this time then, Mr. Naruhodo.
Are you gonna try again? Or can't you hold your hand steady enough to point it out? Evidence showing that the body was moved, huh? Oh, you can see that this is at the corner of the room. That's the corner of the room with the... Okay. I wonder... I wonder if it's anything to do with the bloodstain again. It's the bloodstain.
A photograph of the victim in the very location you claim he wasn't killed?
Yes, but the point is the posture of the body itself. If Inspector Gregson had been shot there in that room, it's out of the question that his body would have been curled up in a ball like that. Are you sure?
Objection! I'm sorry to disappoint you, but your logic is flawed. He could easily have adopted that fetal position due to the pain of the shot, which subsequently proved fatal.
That's what I was thinking.
Objection!
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Judge Jigoku, but it's your logic that is flawed.
What?
According to this autopsy report, the victim died instantly. Died instantly when shot. Okay, so he wouldn't have had time to react to the shot. Okay, that's clever, that's clever. He would have felt no pain, much less have been able to draw himself into that position.
Ah!
Which begs the question of why the victim's body is curled up in that way. Though the answer should be abundantly clear by now.
You're suggesting?
The inspector's body took on that posture ahead of its arrival on Fresno Street, before it was coldly turned out on the floor from the inside of a large travel trunk.
No!
You're quite right. The shape of the body. It looks exactly as if it had been kept in a confined space.
Judge Jigoku, present your trunk for examination. I believe it's very possible that it will contain traces of the victim's blood.
Ah!
Is he gonna break the stand again?
Present my trunk? I refuse!
What? On what grounds?
I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs from the Empire of Japan! I shouldn't have to put up with this treatment just because of some stripling's baseless accusations!
In other words, Judge Jigoku, there is blood in your trunk.
I decline to answer that. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have privileges that allow me to...
Objection!
At this moment, you're not a government minister. You are a witness in a trial in Britain's highest court. I don't care who you are or what your status outside this courtroom might be. You will not withhold information. Nothing is more important than the truth. Argument from Argument from authority, not a valid rebuttal. Correct.
Order! Order in court! Well, Mr. Jigoku, what's it to be?
You can't be serious. You did it? You did it?
Have you no shame at all, Kazuma Asogi?
What?
Very well, I admit it. I did bring the inspector's body into the country. Inside my trunk, exactly as postulated by the defense.
What?
You! Dear God! Outrageous!
So it was you! You admit to...
No!
So it was you! You admit to Inspector Gregson's murder!
No! I admit to nothing more than what I've said. Of killing the man, I certainly have no recollection.
What on earth is that cryptic statement supposed to mean?
I merely disposed of the inspector's body, which was left in my cabin, in order to avoid unwanted attention. As the judicial assistant over there pointed out, I had no chance to throw it into the ocean. So, I decided my only option was to bring it into Britain with me and dispose of it somewhere else.
You can't still deny it! If you didn't do it, then who on earth did kill the man?
As you know, there was one other person in my cabin that night. He had the opportunity. And moreover, he'd already accepted a mission to take the inspector's life.
Oh, here we go.
Oh!
That's right, who else could it have been? It was you, Kazuma Asogi!
You. I never thought you'd stoop to this. Seishiro Jigoku.
You've taken the words straight out of my mouth, Prosecutor Kazuma Asogi. You thought by leaving the body in my cabin you could pin the crime on me, did you?
Well, the prosecution counsel has already admitted to visiting the witness's cabin on the night in question.
Yes, on an assassination mission, no less.
You wouldn't.
So, what do you make of that, young stripling? You've heard my testimony now, and that's all I have to say on the matter. I'll admit to nothing more.
I don't believe this.
Counsel for the defense, what is your position now? The court awaits your response to the witness's assertion. The assertion that on the night in question, the victim's assailant was in fact Mr. Kazuma Asogi.
This isn't the dead end it seems to be. The answer's right in front of me. It comes down to Jigoku or Kazuma. Both of them had the opportunity to kill Gregson, but only one of them did it. And I'm just a step away from proving who. Very well. The defense is ready to respond to the assertion put forward by Judge Jigoku. The idea that the victim's murder could have been committed by Prosecutor Asogi is... Let's review the court record. See, my thinking is that if Kazuma had done it, he would have used this. He would have used a sword. He would not have used a gun. I'm thinking impossible on grounds of revolver. Because this was also found at the scene of the crime, right? Yeah, no, I don't see Kazuma using a revolver. That's exactly it. Yeah, exactly. Where would Kazuma have gotten that thing? Impossible. Judge Shigoku, let me remind you of something you said only a few minutes ago. You claimed that logical reasoning is the future of the judicial process.
It is. No question.
Well, logical reasoning can prove something here. Namely, that it would have been impossible for Prosecutor Asogi to commit the crime.
What?
The court will... The court will only accept an argument that is supported by compelling evidence. So present what you have, counsel. What proof is there that allegedly demonstrates the impossibility of Prosecutor Asogi's involvement?
Take that!
You're making the evidence weep here, Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Sorry? Every piece of evidence has a role to play in arriving at the truth. They're not playthings you can toss around the courtroom for entertainment. What? Ah! Never mind the evidence. You're about to make me weep, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh no, I can't upset Susato-san or I'll end up being upset too. We know a member of the crew was on sentry duty outside the first-class cabins nearly all the time. Oh, right. Wait, no. So as long as the guard was there, it would have been impossible to fire a shot without it being heard. And that very much narrows down when the crime could have been committed. Okay, I got it. That's it! Okay. Following departure from the port of Dunkirk. Yes, the ship had already gone when, the ship had already sailed when the shot was fired, and Asogi was still over here. He has an alibi.
Take that!
This itinerary for crew members of the SS Grouse, my lord. This is conclusive proof.
An itinerary? How does that prove anything?
Judge Shigoku, the moment you acknowledged that you found the victim's body in your cabin, this itinerary suddenly became much more significant.
What? Why?
On the night in question, as always, a crewman sentry was on guard outside your cabin door. As long as he was there, nobody could have fired a shot inside the cabin. Absolutely, because it's inconceivable that the guard wouldn't have heard it and come to investigate. So that tells us that the crime must have taken place when the guard was elsewhere. And that narrows it down to the 20 minutes just after 10 o'clock, as indicated on the itinerary.
Yes, I see no flaw in your reasoning so far.
But the crucial point is this: when the evacuation drill took place, the steamship had already put to sea from the port of Dunkirk. Now, clearly the murder could have only have been committed by somebody who was aboard the vessel at the time. But Prosecutor Asogi stated in yesterday's proceedings, I didn't come to Great Britain to take anyone's life, so I left Gregson and disembarked the ship. I spent that night at a boarding house in the town and returned to England the following morning. Which I'm sure the court will agree is conclusive proof that Kazuma Asogi couldn't possibly have carried out the killing.
Hold it! No, absolutely not! I don't accept that at all!
What do you mean?
The boy's just saying that to exonerate himself. We can't trust that he really disembarked the vessel. Obviously, after he left my cabin, he hid himself somewhere nearby on the ship. Just waiting for his chance to come back and finish the...
Objection!
No, that's out of the question. Isn't it, Kazuma? As the defense rightly recalls, I disembarked the vessel and spent the night in a boarding house in Dunkirk. And as I said yesterday, I signed my name in the accommodations register book. All extremely easy to verify, and undeniable proof.
No!
There's no escape this time. You can forget that you're a judge or a government minister. It's time you gave the court an honest answer as a common man. He's gonna break the stand again. You killed Inspector Tobias Gregson and transported his corpse back to Britain. Then you dumped the body in the room on Fresno Street and made it look as if the murder had happened there. That's what really happened, isn't it? Say, Shirojigoku!
It was that damn trial 10 years ago. That's when all this began. Looking back now, my fate was decided that day. I was doomed already. Ah!
Whoa. Yep, there it is.
It's over! My life is over!
There's the dramatic breakdown. A British assassin to eliminate a professor in Japan. A Japanese assassin to eliminate a detective in Britain. Both assassins will use diplomatic immunity to evade conviction and return safely to their homelands. Oh, sorry.
A British assassin to eliminate a professor in Japan. A Japanese assassin to eliminate a detective in Britain. Both assassins will use diplomatic immunity to evade conviction and return safely to their homelands. The assassin exchange request arrived from Britain about 1 year ago. Though it was hardly a request, it was a demand.
And for that, you decided to recruit Mr. Asogi. But things didn't go according to plan. Your chosen assassin never made it to Britain. And you found yourself unable to dispatch a replacement, because I was already on my way to Britain at that time in Kazuma's place.
And that left me with only one option for carrying out my obligation. To eliminate the mark myself, personally. Of course, there was but a single opportunity for me to do that.
The International Forensic Science Symposium, I presume.
That's right. I decided it would be safest to carry out the plan before my arrival in Britain. So I enlisted the help of my British counterpart and made arrangements for a pretext that would take the inspector to Dunkirk.
You enlisted the help of your British counterpart. Who was it who invited you?
And made arrangements for a pretext that would take the inspector to Dunkirk. To lure the man in, he was given a sham mission by the Reaper.
What? The Reaper? But there's only one person who could have done that. The mastermind of the entire operation. The Reaper himself.
So, that means that the assassin exchange was... It was all planned by the Reaper!
I'm not at liberty to say anything about my British counterpart. Except maybe they stand right in front of me. Oh, sitting. Anyway, the inspector accepted the Reaper's mission. What? Anyway, the inspector accepted the Reaper's mission and dutifully infiltrated my cabin on the steamship.
Was what not obvious? That the Reaper was the British counterpart? The one hiring the assassin? No? What? Oh, that the Reaper planned it all. I mean, we had been operating under this assumption from the beginning. So, I guess Kazuma's just asserting that to say, like, yeah, see, I was right, I knew it, I was right about something. Oh yeah, fair enough.
Anyway, the inspector accepted the Reaper's mission and dutifully infiltrated my cabin on the steamship, but it was all a trap designed to lead him to France and his own death.
Oh, how awful.
It was past 9 o'clock when I returned to my cabin from the dining hall that evening. I didn't give him time to attack me. I choked him until he lost consciousness. But there was a guard just outside the door, so I left it at that for the time being. Even the slightest noise might have aroused suspicion, so I bided my time, waiting.
Oh, I see. So Gregson went in there thinking he was there to kill Jigoku, but it was actually a setup by Jigoku and the other guy to kill Gregson instead. Okay.
So I bided my time, waiting.
For the 20 minutes after 10 o'clock.
I had intended to finish him by strangulation, but moments before I had the chance, he suddenly came round and went for me in a reckless move. I'd received the British issue gun 16 years earlier, being a member of the judiciary as a visiting student. I never imagined I'd have to use it for something like that.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm thinking, is that that gun was the murder weapon, and how would Asogi have gotten his hands on that? Whereas you totally could have.
Never imagined I'd have to use it for something like that.
So the revolver belongs to you, does it?
Then the victim was killed inside your cabin on the SS Grouse. Which begs the question of why you arranged for his body to be discovered in the room on Fresno Street.
The young judicial assistant over there has already answered that question. There was no way I could take the body up on deck to throw it over the side. That's precisely where all the crewmen were gathered for the evacuation drill. So before the first-class cabin sentries returned, I took the corpse to the refrigeration room.
And then on arriving in Dover, you concealed the body in your trunk in order to smuggle it past the border police.
I knew I needed to take steps if the police were to be convinced when the body was found in London.
In that case, you must have known. You must have had intimate details of Inspector Gregson's intended schedule.
Yes, my British counterpart sent me everything I needed to know. The inspector was due at Fresno Street at 5 o'clock that afternoon. In order to meet a man by the name of Hugh Boone, from whom he would take back his police identification.
Ah!
I decided that man would be the perfect person to set up as the culprit. So I took a hackney carriage over there with the body still in my trunk.
That must have been just after we took this photograph with you at the hotel, then. This photograph with you at the hotel.
Yes, I wasn't expecting a welcoming committee. I was more than a little nervous. On Fresno Street, I spotted a young girl selling little firecrackers.
Miss Venus, of course.
I conceived of the candle trick there and then. So I donned a simple disguise and approached the girl to buy enough firecrackers to replicate a gunshot.
What sort of disguise?
For some reason, the inspector had a bright red hairpiece in his own traveling case. So I put that on, although I suspect I drew more attention to myself in that than I would have otherwise.
The hairpiece we found at the scene. The inspector had it ready for the Red-Headed League investigation.
I only arrived at the room at around 4:45. So I quickly placed the body on the floor, moved the notice board, and set up my little candle trick. I arranged it so the firecrackers would go off with a bang around 15 minutes later.
So that Mr. Boone, who was due to arrive at 5, would walk straight into a trap?
Except, at the last moment, I made a careless blunder.
What was that?
I imagine it was the bag of fish and chips.
Ah!
I didn't notice that it had fallen out of his overcoat pocket when I moved the body to the refrigeration room. I put it back into his pocket the following morning, but... well, it seems the warmth of the heated cabin had accelerated the decay of the fish.
Ah, here we go. Yep, that explains it.
Anyway, that's everything. all the sordid details of what I did.
I've heard enough. We've arrived at the truth about the murder of one of the country's most capable and respected police inspectors. The witness will be tried in the coming days. For a crime of such a vile nature, you can expect the most severe penalty.
An exchange of assassins. What a foolhardy idea.
Mr. Jigoku, one last detail. Who was your counterpart in Britain? Who was the mastermind behind the assassin exchange? Nothing you say now can make matters any worse for you. Just tell us.
Enough! I've already told you that I cannot say.
Even though as things stand, you may very well never set foot in your homeland again.
What are you waiting for? Can't we get this over with now? It's finished. All of it. I'm finished.
Then, in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I now pronounce the findings of this court. This man before us has admitted to the willful murder of Tobias Gregson.
I thought this was for Van Zeeks.
Seishiro Jigoku, it is the opinion of this court that you should be found guilty. And may I remind all those present of the strict confidentiality demanded by this closed court.
Yep, he's using this and throwing Jigoku under the bus to avoid us uncovering his own involvement.
Moments ago, Mr. Jigoku signed a written confession, admitting to the murder of Inspector Gregson and the subsequent conveyance of the body. In short, the defendant's innocence has therefore been established beyond doubt.
Oh, wonderful! Well done, Mr. Naruhodo.
Yes, thank you.
Is something wrong?
I'm just a little troubled by his silence.
The true identity of the Reaper of the Bailey, and this extraordinary assassin exchange, we do remain in the dark about these mysteries. However, insofar as the indictment brought against the defendant in this trial, we have reached a conclusion. I have every intention of pursuing both mysteries as a prosecutor. As you wish. Now for the formal adjudication. I hereby declare the defendant Barak Van Zeeks.
Objection!
The prosecution calls for adjudication to be deferred.
Counsel?
The accused's innocence hasn't been fully established at all, and therefore it would be wrong to deliver a verdict at this time. That is the prosecution's unwavering position.
What? But Judge Jigoku has already confessed!
Nevertheless, Barak Van Zeeks has committed crimes for which he must be punished.
Well, it would appear you have information that the court needs to hear, Prosecutor Asuki.
Certainly the murder of Inspector Gregson was actually carried out by Seishiro Jigoku. But it's clear from the witness's testimony that he was coerced into complying with the plot, into this sick, merciless assassin exchange. That may be true, but... So what I want to know is, who coerced Jigoku? Who was pulling the strings?
He's right there, dude, and he's not the guy in purple. He's the guy in yellow. Come on, are you... No, I'm not going to make that joke. The victim went to France, having been ordered on a mission for the Reaper, only to be murdered. Plus, I'm pretty sure that's not actually a thing. In other words, the mastermind behind the Assassin Exchange is someone in a position to give such an order. Okay, that I can make. Although that is more up Perry's that is more up Perry's alley. But yeah. You'll get to see him tomorrow. In other words, the mastermind behind the Assassin Exchange is someone in a position to give such an order. As we've already established, the Reaper himself.
Well, certainly that would appear to follow.
The prosecution hereby formally accuses the man in the dock, Barak Van Zieks, of being the Reaper of the Bailey, and furthermore, I'm going to prove his guilt beyond all reasonable doubt. What? What?!
Order! 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 The Reaper of the Bailey is a long-standing mystery, Counsel. Are you suggesting you have some new information with which to build a case?
Scotland Yard has already investigated Lord Van Zieks very thoroughly in that regard, and they found no evidence whatsoever to substantiate the claim that he is the Reaper.
Perhaps, but circumstances have now changed. What do you mean? It's already been established that the Assassin Exchange was negotiated with Jigoku by the Reaper himself, which means we now have a new line of questioning by which to identify definitively the man's identity. That is the prosecution's intention here.
I must say I'm surprised by quite how tenaciously you appear to want to besmirch my name.
You are guilty of an unforgivable crime, Lord Van Zieks. And I will bring you to justice for it, whatever it takes. The unforgivable crime of killing his father? Sonic 06 has permanently ruined. Circumstances have changed for me. Oh no. I haven't played that one, and I don't think I ever will, honestly. That explains Kazuma's silence before. He'll stop at nothing to finish what Lord Van Zieks unwittingly started 10 years ago.
Very well, whilst it's extremely irregular. I will on this occasion grant the prosecution further opportunity for witness testimony. The defendant will disclose any and all involvement he has had with the Reaper and the Assassin Exchange.
I thank you, my lord, for guiding the court so wisely.
I hereby declare this court to be in session for a supplementary hearing. Pray turn a blind eye to the discourtesy as I verify that this vile and unremitting accusation hasn't soured the contents of my hallowed chalice.
Lord Van Zieks!
I first had to suffer the pseudonym of the Reaper 10 years ago now.
The supplementary hearing flames. Yep.
And ever since that time, I've endured the weight of implied guilt that's gone with it. So I welcome the chance to testify now and crush those allegations once and for all.
Good. Then let justice decide, Lord Van Zieks. The prosecution seeks to begin building its case by calling the accused to the stand as the primary witness, in order that he may answer the accusation brought by the prosecution that he is the Reaper of the Bailey.
And what says the defense?
Putting the defendant in the witness stand can be extremely dangerous. And Kazuma-sama is so emotional at the moment, he's not thinking logically.
You're right that he's not himself, but I knew it would be like this. And I came here today determined to face him through whatever might arise. as a lawyer and as his friend.
Then that's what we must do.
The defense has no objection, my lord.
Very well. Defendant, you will take the witness stand and give formal testimony on the subject of your involvement with the Reaper and the Assassin Exchange.
As you wish, my lord.
Oh, so this is more of part 2? Okay. The Reaper and the Assassin Exchange.
I've never taken the life of another, nor have I instructed another to kill. I've been investigating the truth behind the Reaper for years, and I was aware of Gregson's involvement. That's the reason why I went to Fresno Street that day, and how I came to discover the body. The point is, no common thread exists between myself, Gregson, and Dr. Wilson. Clearly, therefore, there's no reason to suspect me of being behind the assassination exchange.
No common thread exists between yourself, Gregson, and Dr. Wilson. I'm pretty sure that's not correct. Court record. Coroner John H. Wilson. Victim named Clint Van Zeeks. Credit to Inspector Gregson for petitioning so doggedly for the autopsy procedure. I present this to that statement. Easy.
Clearly, therefore, there's no reason to suspect me of being behind the assassination exchange.
So you deny all allegations by the prosecution? Both that you are the Reaper of the Bailey and that you masterminded the Assassin Exchange.
All accusations. I said allegations, didn't I? All accusations, whatever.
I acknowledge that the public at large believe me to be the Reaper. However, that's a fallacy which I alone am in a position to forswear.
Naturally, the prosecution believes the testimony just given by the accused to be untrue. Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Yes? Let me ask you, why are you here? What really brings you to this courtroom? A desire to uncover the truth, even if the truth proves your client to be guilty. From all my experiences in this courtroom, I've come to realize something. The truth can't be hidden. Sooner or later, it will come out. So it's always my intention to work with my client in pursuit of the truth. It's one of life's great mysteries. Yep. I want you to remember what you just said.
Enough dilatory chatter. Counsel for the defense, proceed to cross-examine the witness.
Yes, my lord. I know exactly what you're thinking, Kazuma. I know you're just waiting to point it out. The contradiction you're convinced lies somewhere within this man's testimony. Never taken the life of another, nor have I instructed another to kill. Been investigating truth behind the Reaper for years. I was aware of Gregson's involvement. That's the reason why I went to Fresno Street that day and how I came to discover the body. The point is, no common thread exists between myself, Gregson, and Dr. Wilson. False. Yep, this is it.
Objection!
What is this? An autopsy report? Wait, this is 10 years old, from the autopsy of Lord Clint Van Zeeks. What? My brother's autopsy report?
I'm pleased to see the defense doesn't intend to run from the undeniable truth.
Order in court! What reason do you have for presenting a 10-year-old autopsy report here, counsel?
The autopsy report of the professor's final victim, is an indelible link between Inspector Gregson, Dr. Wilson, and the defendant.
Not that accursed name again, the professor!
I've personally researched all of the court records relating to that case.
I know that at the time, autopsy was considered sacrilege to the victims' souls. And for a member of the aristocracy like Lord Clint Van Zeeks, it was unthinkable. But someone implored the powers that be to allow the autopsy to go ahead, Inspector Gregson. He declared that he was certain he would obtain conclusive proof from the procedure.
And it was Dr. Wilson who conducted the autopsy. His signature is clearly visible on the document.
As promised by Gregson, the autopsy did indeed produce evidence. Evidence that conclusively proved Genshin Asogi was guilty of the murders. In my brother's dying moments, he mustered all his remaining strength to leave that vital clue behind. Indeed. That was the key to indicting the professor for his crimes and the conclusive evidence that convicted him.
Yeah, shouldn't this disqualify Asogi from prosecuting this case? Even aside from all the other stuff that we know that he was involved in?
It enabled Lord Van Zeeks here to avenge his brother's senseless death with a marvelous victory in court.
A marvelous victory, was it? I wonder if that's really true. But could the same be said if it turned out that the key piece of evidence in question was in fact fabricated? If the inspector, the coroner, and the prosecutor all colluded together to cast an innocent Japanese man as a mass murderer and send him to his death.
That's outrageous!
And now, 10 years later, for some reason the secret has been threatened and needs protecting. Which is why the inspector and the coroner had to be silenced, isn't it? By someone in power in Japan and in Britain, using the two killers recruited for the assassin exchange.
Order! Order at once!
10 years ago, my father was convicted in this very courtroom as a mass murderer, to be sentenced to death. But it was all a sham, and I swore to myself that I'd prove it. Which is why I had to come to Britain, whatever the cost.
You'll have to forgive me if I feel compelled to toast this vengeful Nipponese's tenacity of purpose here. However, he who fails to quash his emotions in the courtroom has failed as a lawyer.
But he's not a lawyer, he's a prosecutor.
Come on, Kazuma, you know this won't wash. You're claiming your father was misrepresented in a trial that took place a whole decade ago. You must see that without evidence, that's nothing more than a wild accusation.
As it happens, I have evidence. Oh, okay. So it was a previous it was a previous Ace Attorney game that got that wrong then. They said that the lawyers were the defense ones. Okay. Interesting. As it happens, I have evidence.
What?
As the court has heard, I crossed the channel to France with Gregson on the 31st. I went with him on the pretext of being the assassin recruited to kill Seishiro Jigoku. But my true intentions were to make the inspector tell me the truth. That truth. The truth about the evidence. And he acknowledged what I'd already deduced. There's a closely guarded secret about what went on in that autopsy 10 years ago.
What? A secret? I know nothing of any secret!
While we waited for my supposed mark in Jigoku's cabin, I drew my clan's illustrious sword, Karuma, before the inspector's eyes. He very quickly understood what my true motive was.
Right, I see. You're that Asogi's young lad, are you? And what? You gonna cut me down with that thing? You gonna cut me down with that thing? Is that it?
That will very much depend on the answers you give to my questions. I want to know what really happened 10 years ago. The truth, that's all.
Before we get into it, let me make one thing clear. I still believe your father was the professor. There's no doubt in my mind. Unfortunately, back then, we didn't have the evidence we needed to make the crime stick. But can you handle the truth? Good question. So, you admit it then? The evidence used in my father's trial was fabricated? It was for the good of the country. Anyway, I was just following orders. Orders? What exactly did you do? Speak! I'm not saying another word. Even if your life depends on it? That's right. Even then. And that's when he hit that's when he hit the suitcase? So that's when the tip of the sword broke.
Oh, Kazuma-sama.
If the results of Clint Van Zeek's autopsy were fabricated, then the investigating officer, Gregson, and the lead coroner, Wilson, must have known about it. And they can only have been ordered to pervert the course of justice in that way by one man. The man leading the case for the prosecution, Barak Van Zeeks.
In other words, the defendant did have cause to organize this exchange of assassins.
Exactly. And as was established earlier, it has to have been the Reaper himself who liaised with Jigoku in Japan to arrange the exchange. Ah! So it follows that the Reaper's true identity can only be that of the man who stands accused in this courtroom today, Barak Van Zeeks. No. It was this guy. This guy right in front of Van Zeeks.
Objection!
Kazuma Asogi. What?
What you've just told the court, are you absolutely certain of your facts? Did Gregson really fabricate evidence for that trial 10 years ago?
I heard it with my own ears. His shameful admission. So now he realizes he sentenced the wrong guy to death, too.
In that case, I know the name of the Reaper.
Finally! Are we finally gonna get to it? What? What? Lord Van Zeeks?
I gave no such orders. I know that for certain. Which narrows down the remaining possibilities to one.
If Lord Van Zeeks isn't the one behind all this, then yes, there is only one other person who could have done something like that. I believe I know who it is, too. You. I just had a feeling this name was going to come up. The true identity of the infamous Reaper of the Bailey is... Yes! I know I didn't give the orders because I would have told myself if I did, and I didn't tell myself. Wait a minute, hang on. Court record. People. Oh, he's 53. I read that backwards. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yes. Finally we get to point things at him. The only person who could have arranged the assassin exchange and manipulated the autopsy reports is the Lord Chief Justice himself, Lord Mael Strongheart. What? Lord Strongheart? Yes! I was right! All those months ago, I was right! Yes! I called it! I called it! All that time ago, way back when we started this, I knew it. I knew he was evil. I knew it. I fucking called it!
Oh my god! Yes! I knew he couldn't be trusted. I knew it. I knew it. Yes, Pogs in the chat. Yes. Good to see you're still here, Nibble. Glad you didn't miss this. The moment of my vindication that Strongheart is the big bad evil guy. Yes, it's true that 10 years ago the defendant handled the defendant handled the prosecution of the professor in court, but he only took over the case after his brother, Lord Clint Van Zieks, had been killed.
I can only assume that this is the most inappropriate joke in British judicial history.
Well, Lord Van Zieks?
10 years ago, I was very new to my profession, but I had a burning desire to avenge my brother's death, so I pleaded for control of the case. The investigation to that point, the supplication of the lords to allow my brother's corpse to be examined. All the evidence I was given, the autopsy reports, it all came from you. I've spent my life since then believing I was in your debt for the way you stood aside and let me handle the trial.
Wow, he really is the Von Karma to this guy's Edgeworth.
But I see now.
Even though, as a friend rightly pointed out, Strongheart looks more like Damon Gant than like Manfred Von Karma.
But I see now. I was very much mistaken.
It was a hugely influential force that caused the inspector and the coroner to break the law 10 years ago. And that same force was still felt a decade later on the other side of the world, by Seishiro Jigoku. Lord Strongheart, everything falls into place when we recognize that you are the Reaper of the Bailey.
The court awaits your response, my lord. This may very well go down in British judicial history, but I assure you, it is no joke. Consider this a formal accusal by the defense. It doesn't warrant a response.
Zeeks, you have a drinking problem. Someone finally pointed it out, huh? Not that you drink too much. That you break your glasses too often. No, we've seen Kekleon, we saw in Van Zieks' office that he has like this huge shelf of these chalices, just so he can break them in court. He has this huge stockpile of identical chalices. We saw that over the past few cases in the investigation parts. Remember?
It doesn't warrant a response. A formal accusal? Don't be absurd. The defense's claims are utter nonsense, a wild fantasy at best.
You're not gonna defend yourself?
You claim there was some wrongdoing with Lord Clint Van Zieks' autopsy? That's utterly untrue.
Objection!
But I heard it from Gregson's own lips. He admitted to it.
And where is your evidence?
What?
Gregson's dead now, unless you were thinking of summoning a ghost to the stand.
Wrong game for that, I admit. You mean to say?
I forget how the system works in your little backwater country.
But there it is, the racism that had me point the finger at him in the first place.
But in the courts of the British Empire, without evidence there is no case. I have no intention of entertaining some wild fantasy that can't possibly be substantiated by anyone or anything. Order! Order in court! Following Inspector Gregson's murder, and in the light of Dr. Wilson's death as well, there's really no one left who could testify about the events of 10 years ago, is there? So that was the real purpose of the assassin exchange. This court has no business raking over the coals of a case that was concluded a decade ago. The accusal brought by the prosecution and the defense is categorically denied. I take it there are no objections?
Kazuma. He's more or less waited his whole life for this moment. Is there really nothing else we can do now? Is there no other avenue we can go down in pursuit of the truth about what happened all those years ago? If only there was someone who could testify about Clint Van Zieks' autopsy.
Testify about Clint Van Zieks' autopsy.
Yujin Mikotoba. He's gone to extraordinary lengths to cover his tracks, even so far as dispatching an assassin all the way to Japan to ensure Dr. Wilson's silence. And Dr. Scythe won't say anything against Strongheart. But there's still one ray of hope.
Objection!
Actually, there is one person. One person who could still testify about that autopsy.
Don't be ridiculous. There's no one left.
Who, Ryunosuke? Who? Tell me! Kazuma. Please, this trial can't end. Not yet. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for the truth. The person the defense would like to call to the stand to testify about the autopsy of Lord Clint Van Zieks is...
Take that!
Heaven help us. Another Japanese?
An expert in forensic medicine, my lord, Professor Yujin Mikotoba. 16 years ago, he came to London with Seishiro Jigoku and Genshin Asogi as a visiting student.
And what could his testimony possibly tell us?
Professor Mikotoba was the primary assistant during the autopsy in question. He was also the person who actually penned the report.
Incorrect. The autopsy was carried out by the coroner, Dr. Wilson. The report carries his signature.
It was the primary assistant's duty to keep a written record of the coroner's work during the procedure. In actual fact, the coroner merely read over the report at the end and signed it. In other words, Professor Mikotoba witnessed the entire autopsy from start to finish. The defense demands that Professor Mikotoba be summoned as a witness as a matter of urgency. Whatever really happened in that autopsy laboratory 10 years ago is something only he can tell us.
The defense's demand is denied.
What? But Professor Mikotoba is in London at this very moment. We can summon him to the stand in minutes. No, of course he's not going to agree to it. Strongheart has no intention of summoning anyone who knows. He's too concerned about protecting himself.
Prosecutor Asogi, let me refresh your memory as you seem to have forgotten the prosecution's stance. Only minutes ago, you accused the defendant of being the Reaper and of masterminding the assassin exchange.
I did, yes.
So present your evidence for those claims and make your case complete.
At this time, I don't have the requisite evidence. But that's exactly why we need witness testimony.
The professor case is closed. There are no clues in the distant past that will bolster your argument today. I'm afraid to say, Prosecutor Asogi, that you would appear to be possessed by the spirit of your late homicidal father.
Okay, that's it. He's going down. In flames.
Now, as I stated earlier, this court has already reached a conclusion with respect to the matter at hand, and no, it is not that my hair is to be lit aflame. Inspector Gregson was murdered by Japanese Supreme Court Judge Seishiro Jigoku. As for any hidden circumstances that may exist, they will be investigated in due course by the proper authorities.
Objection!
But we all know what will happen. That'll just give the mastermind of the whole venture time to cover his tracks again.
By which you mean me?
Yes?
Your punishment for this contemptible behavior will be decided at a later date. As for you, Prosecutor Asogi, you will be remanded following these proceedings. Willingly, I trust, since you gave your word. Ugh! This futile game of revenge is over, young Master Asogi. That will be all. I hereby declare this trial to be over. Court is...
Hold it! Mr. Sholmes!
This is no place for amateur detection, Mr. Sholmes. May I remind you that these proceedings are closed to the general public? You will leave the courtroom at once.
Objection!
Mr. Sholmes was instrumental in the apprehension of Seishiro Jigoku before he fled from Europe. The court should hear what he has to say. Lord Mayor Strongheart, it's imperative that you refrain from bringing this trial to an end at this stage.
Is it really? And why would that be?
You need only recall your own words from the opening of the trial to answer that question, if I may. We will stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth behind these disturbing findings. Surely it can't be that the shock of being accused of being the Reaper yourself has erased that from your memory, can it?
The whole truth, sir, has already been uncovered.
It would seem that we have a great many important members of the judiciary present here today. I put it to you, my dear fellows, should the trial end at this juncture? After all, why have you been invited to attend? To nod along to the prevarications of your superiors? Yes, go Sholmes!
Order! Order in court!
It seems to me that we stand before a door that leads to a new era of legal practices. A door that is ajar. Let us emerge from the shadows of the Reaper's decade-long ascendancy. For you and you alone, my dear fellows, have the power to push this door open now.
The auditors in the gallery have no rights to express an opinion on court proceedings. Silence!
He's right. The judge has absolute authority here. Yes, if he calls the trial to an end, it must end. But will that really do? I sense dark things occurring behind the scenes. Dark things indeed. Is there a single person here present who can honestly... Is there a single person here present who can honestly say he doesn't sense the same? What? The trial should go on! Summon the witness! That's right, we need to clear this up before that young Japanese fellow is remanded in custody! My lord, you assured those present that you would uncover the whole truth here! Vindicate yourself of this outlandish accusation!
The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's the very foundation of British law.
A toast to my dependable colleagues in the gallery. Testify! 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 Well, my lord, you hear the voice of British justice, I take it. I think you'll find it would be rather awkward to silence.
The court will recess briefly. I have no intention of shrinking from these allegations. Bailiff, arrange for the subpoena of the witness at once. As soon as the gentleman arrives at the courthouse, we shall reconvene.
A recess won't be necessary, my lord.
Pardon?
Mikotoba is a close friend of mine. He accompanied me today and is waiting in the antechamber as we speak. I do believe he's been enjoying a little trip down memory lane, in fact.
What? Professor Mikotoba is here in the courthouse?
Mr. Sholmes, you didn't know this would happen, did you? My dear fellow, no one is in a better position to answer that question than you, surely. I wasn't just asking for the fun of it, you know.
Well, I must thank you for your assistance in this matter, Mr. Sholmes. However, you are of no further use here. Kindly leave the courtroom at once.
But of course, in truth, I find myself rather busy now as a result of these developments. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? I trust you have Iris's little lucky charm with you. Absolutely. It's still in my pocket. She sends her regards, and a reminder, if you find yourself at a dead end, the ears are at your disposal. Just one tug, if you please. Oh, of course.
In that case, the trial will continue without delay. Bailiff, show the witness to the stand.
So it's Lord Strongheart. He's the Reaper of the Bailey. Where exactly is this trial going to take me, I wonder? Just how deep am I about to be plunged into the blackness of the abyss? Well, I'm ready. I'm ready to head into the heart of this maelstrom and confront whatever horrors it tries to drown me under. Haha, maelstrom. Heart. Maelstrom heart. Yep. They went there. They went there. Confront whatever horrors it tries to drown me under. To be concluded next week. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Thank you for making it to this momentous occasion of me being proven right. All those months ago. Anyway. I will once again remind you to follow, subscribe, join the Discord. Link there. You can get alerts for events. There is currently a vote going on as to what Perry will stream tomorrow afternoon. So make sure your voice is heard. And also, I am holding a vote for which ROM hack of Super Mario 64 I am going to stream this coming Tuesday as well. So don't miss out. Make your voice heard. Testify, as it were. Anyway, yeah, there's also free games that we give away on Fridays, so don't miss that either. And I think that about covers everything. Let's see if there's anyone to raid right now. My following list is loading. We are going to... Oh, Tuppence is still live. Okay, sure, let's pop over there.
Okay, let's try
Okay,
it
I
again,
don't
chat.
need that.
Let's
Okay.
try it again.
All right, I'll see you all over there. Thanks again for watching, comrades. See you next time.